Title: The Keeper of the Tide. In the coastal hamlet of Dunmere, where cliffs cradled the sea's endless roar, the lighthouse stood like a sentinel carved from bone. Its beacon had not spun for a century, yet every dusk a single light flickered in its tower, steady as a heartbeat. The villagers called it the Tide's Lantern, and they spoke of its keeper, Aisling, in hushed tones. She was no myth, though her years seemed to defy time's pull, her hair a braid of seaweed and silver, her eyes the gray of storm-born waves. They said she lit the lantern not for ships, but for something older, something the sea had claimed and never returned. Aisling lived in a cottage at the cliff's edge, its walls salt-stained, its hearth always warm. She mended nets for fishermen and brewed tea from kelp, her laughter rare but bright, like sunlight-piercing fog. Yet no one crossed her threshold after dark. Not since old Torrens swore he'd seen her shadow dance alone by the lantern's glow, though the tower door was locked tight. On a night when the moon hid and the wind wailed like a mourner, a girl named Kaylin defied the unspoken rule. At 17, she was restless, her heart tugged by questions no elder would answer. Why did Aisling climb the tower each dusk? What did the light guard or call? Kaylin's mother had warned her to let mysteries lie, but the sea's song was in her blood, and it whispered of truths buried deep. She waited until the village slept, then slipped from her bed, a shawl clutched against the cold. The path to Aisling's cottage was treacherous, slick with spray, but Kaylin's steps were sure. The lighthouse loomed ahead, its lantern a lone star in the black. She didn't knock. She pressed her ear to the cottage door, hearing only the fire's crackle within. Emboldened, she crept toward the tower, its iron door ajar, as if daring her to enter. Inside, the air was thick with salt and memory. A spiral stair wound upward, its steps worn smooth by unseen feet. Kaylin climbed, heart pounding, until she reached the lantern room. There stood Aisling, framed by the glass dome, her hands cupped around a flame that burned without oil or wick. It pulsed, green as sea glass, casting shadows that writhed like eels. "You're bold, child," Aisling said without turning, her voice soft as surf. "Or foolish." Kaylin froze, words tangling in her throat. I wanted to know," she stammered. "The light. What's it for?" Aisling's gaze met hers, sharp and ancient. "To remember," she said. "And to keep a promise." She stepped aside, revealing the flame's heart, a locket suspended in the glow, its chain glinting like frost. Kaylin leaned closer, seeing shapes within, faces, fleeting, then gone. Her breath caught. "Who are they?" "Those the sea took," Aisling murmured. "Lovers, sailors, dreamers. I light their way, so they're not lost forever." Kaylin's eyes stung, though she didn't know why. "And you? Why you?" Aisling's smile was a tide receding. "Because I loved one of them, and I failed him." The flame flared, and Kaylin glimpsed a man's face, young, laughing, then swallowed by shadow. She stepped back, dizzy, the tower seeming to sway. Aisling's hand steadied her, cool as stone. Go home, Kaylin, she said gently. Some truths cut deeper than answers. Kaylin fled, the lantern's glow searing her mind. By dawn, she was in her bed, the village stirring as if nothing had changed. But she never spoke of that night, not to her mother, not to anyone. The lighthouse stood silent, its lantern lit each dusk, and Aisling remained, weaving her vigil into Dunmere's bones. Sometimes, Kaylin watched from her window, wondering if the sea whispered back. The light burned on, a promise unbroken, holding the lost in its fragile embrace. Thank you, amazing viewers. We're so grateful to you for listening to our story videos on English through stories. Your support for adventures like The Keeper of the Tide and The Lantern Keeper means the world to us. Keep learning English with us. More exciting stories are coming.